بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله لا نبي بعده صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحابته وكل مسلم تبع هداه استمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, my dear respected brothers and sisters, again we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to meet, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless these gatherings on social media and hopefully still as best beneficial as it is in land. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all and continue to guide us and protect us on the guidance. Tonight I'm going to continue talking about how should we invite and convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to our non-Muslim friends. And if it happens that there is our non-Muslim friends are watching here, I just wanted to make sure that for us Muslims on our behalf, making da'wah is not intended to convert people. It is just very clear for some reasons. Number one, because we do believe that none of us Muslims can give guidance to anybody. We cannot guide whom we will and even whom we love. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was clearly reminded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, innaka la tahdi man ahbabt walakin Allah yahdi man yasha. Muhammad, verily you will never ever be able to guide whom you love. And it means his own uncle at the time he was struggling. He struggled with all his efforts. He tried to convince his uncle to believe and declare La ilaha illallah, but he did not. And finally, when he felt sad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded him that innaka la tahdi man ahbabt walakin Allah yahdi man yasha. This is the first reason, and so da'wah is not intended for us, to guide people, because we cannot. Secondly, we do understand that faith is something personal in nature. It is something that should root and establish solid in your heart, and no one can intervene in that except between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we are not here to convert. We are here to tell you what Islam is all about. We are here to show you what Islam is all about. We are here to explain and to clarify, unfortunately, some misconceptions. Not only some, but many misconceptions that have been, bombarded to the minds of some, either by media or by some politicians, irresponsible politicians, that has taken Islam as one of the sexy subjects in their campaign. And so that is our responsibility as Muslims. When we say we are making da'wah, it means just to convey and tell and show our friends, our neighbors, about what Islam is. But it doesn't mean that we are here to convert, because we cannot convert. Once again, the Quran, and there are many verses in the Holy Quran, remind us as Muslims. Number one, which is most popular, la ikraha fi din, there is no compulsion in the religion. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Muhammad ma alayka illa al-balagh. Muhammad, your responsibility is to convey. And then even say, lasta alayhim bi musaytir, you cannot force, you don't have any authority on them. So the ayat of the Holy Quran is very clear on this. So Do not misunderstand us when we say that we are making da'wah. Although the meaning of da'wah is to invite, okay, to invite or to call. That's the meaning of da'wah. Da'wah ilallah means inviting the people to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it doesn't mean to convert. The third reason is because we Muslims as a whole believe that when people later on in their life accept Islam, they are basically not converting, but they are reverting. There's a reversion because everyone, according to the belief of Islam, that everyone is born in the state of being Muslims, in the state of being pure, in the state of being fitri. Fitrat Allah allati fatara an-nas 'alayha la tabdila li khalqillah. Kullu mawludin yuladu 'ala al-fitra. Every child is born in the state of purity. And so that's what we believe as Muslims. And therefore, when someone is accepting Islam, we don't call him converting, we call him reverting. It means coming back, return back to the origin, to the original purity, to the original soul, and that is the fitra itself. And so again, the word conversion is not in the concept of Islam. And unfortunately, one of the misconceptions and things that being, accused of this religion is about that Islam, but the Muslims, converting the people and even converting the people by force, by military means and others. And certainly something that needs to be clarified. So coming back to our point tonight, we explained quite a number about what we have to do in order to convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think in the last session, we talked about the importance of lisanul qawm, the importance of, conveying the message based on the lisan and the language of the people whom we convey al-Islam to. And we explained that language is not only oral or spoken language, but language means also cultural language, social language, even economic, even political language, even environment where we live in. It's a part of the language that we have to understand when we want to convey the message of Allah. So we cannot blind ourselves, or we cannot be blinded with the language of the people when we want to convey. Of course, the spoken language is very important, because if we are making da'wah in America, it means that we have to speak English. How are you going to speak it to American people without speaking English? So it is very important, but we don't limit the meaning of language, lisan, with just spoken language. There's also cultures, social behaviors, and others, and so on and so forth. And that's what we talked last time. But also we talk about the importance of talking to the people on the basis of, or possibly on the level of their understanding. In other words, sometimes we talk to a very ordinary person and we talk very high. So there is a gap here. There's a gap. Looks like there's a disconnection. Or otherwise, we are talking to a professor of philosophy from Harvard University, and we talk about Islam literally. For example, just we read the Quran, read the Hadith, and we feel that we have conveyed the message of Allah. Of course, sometimes for them, it doesn't make sense because they need explanation. They need some, deep interpretations into the things that we talk about, because they are philosopher, they are intellectual, they are, smart people. So we need to talk to the people according to the capacity of their mind. Okay, and it is very important, as Rasulullah SAW used to do that. We see the way he answered, we see the way he responded to some questions asked by some Sahaba, different Sahaba, and sometimes one subject or one issue, he gave different answers. For example, ayyul a'mal khair, which one is the best deed in Islam? And we found that in several hadith that he mentioned differently. In some hadith he say al-jihad fi sabilillah, it's about jihad in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some other he say birrul walidain, some other he say hajjul mabrur, different. Sometimes he say al-waqtu ala as-salatu ala waqtiha. It depends. Possibly he talked to the people according to the need. And this is what I call the importance of understanding psychology of the people you talk to, because otherwise, we are just going, seemingly talking to the wall, if you don't understand whom we talk to. Similarly, when someone is coming to ask about Islam, it is very important to know his background. If we are talking to the Christians, certainly it's different from the way we talk to our Jewish friends. When our Jewish friends is coming to ask about Islam, it certainly is different from the way we talk to those who don't believe in the faith, in the religion at all, called, agnostic and others. And just I wanted to remind you that, the third largest religion in the world today is what's so-called no religion. And there are many young people around us basically don't believe in the religion. How many young people came to us before, they wanted to learn Islam or they wanted to be Muslim even. And normally we ask, what is your religion? And believe me, possibly more than 70%, those who came to us and we asked him or her, what is your religion? The answer would be, I don't know. They don't know their religion because they don't believe in religion basically. And this is the third largest religious group, if I consider that religion also, religious group in the world, that is Al-Ladiniya, that they don't have any religion anymore. So we have number one is Islam, because we have like 1.6, 1.7 billion Muslims. And then Christianity first, of course, there are 2 billions, but you have to separate Protestant and then Catholic. And so we come Islam in the second. And then the third one is those who don't believe in religion at all. And there are many of those. So when you talk to them, and we begin by talking about, prophets, about the Quran, about the holy books, possibly it doesn't make sense to them. I think we need to begin by talking about what is the importance of faith, what is the importance of religion in human's life, who God is all about. And so we have to know whom we talk to. Similarly, when we talk to Buddhist people, Buddhist people normally don't believe in God, but they believe in what's so-called supreme being. And if you ask them what does it mean to be supreme being, they will say the nature. And that's why they're struggling to simplify their life, to unite with the nature. So one day I met one of our Buddhist friend, and he prayed. After the prayer, I asked him, do you believe in God? And he said, no. So I said, if you don't believe in God, whom you pray to? He said, to the nature. So I said to him, if you pray to the nature and you consider yourself as a part of the nature, because this nature, universe, is a unified, body. We are all a part of the nature. So if you are part of the nature and you pray to the nature, so it means you pray to yourself. Basically, I don't mean to debate, but that's what it is. My point is that when you talk to the Buddhists, of course, we talk differently. Similarly, when a Hindu come to us, we have to talk differently. My point here, brothers and sisters, of khatibun nasa qadra uqulihim. Talk to the people based on the capacity of their mind. Because sometimes we communicate Islam in a bulldozer way. We don't care about whom we talk to. We talk to someone who is in the economic field, talking about math, talking about money, calculating money, counting money. And then all of a sudden we talk about medicine. It doesn't make sense. Or we talk to the physician, to the doctor, and in his mind is all about medicine, health issues. And then we talk about engineering, talking about how to make an airplane, for example. It doesn't make sense too. So my point is very important, once again, that we have to talk to the people according to their minds. Now, the next point I would like to talk tonight briefly is about and I think last time I mentioned this briefly, that it is very, very important to prepare ourselves to answer and to respond to difficult questions. And we have to be aware that we are living in a very critical minds. People are very critical on everything, not only on Islam, but on every religion. And the reason why many people basically don't care about religion anymore, because they become critical, minded. And at the same time, we fail to present that Islam that can address their critical minds. And so we have to prepare and to be prepared to answer a difficult question that they have in mind. And believe me, it's not only about our non-Muslim friends that have their critical questions in mind, even our own generations, our young generations, they have a very critical questions in their mind. Sometimes they don't want to ask that openly in front of us, particularly to the imams, because they feel that, at least that they want to respect the imam, but they still have that in the back of their heads. And we have to prepare to answer those questions, and that's what it is. Our young generations are becoming more smart, becoming more, open into many informations. In this open media, and particularly social media, they tend to know and read everything. Facebook is the place where they can read every single thing. And of course, those things are, stayed in their minds, and they wanted to clarify those. And luckily enough, that Alhamdulillah, our deen prepare itself for this type of mindset, a critical mindset. Islam is prepared to answer those very critical questions. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, possibly, and I give this example many times, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam possibly looks like a paradoxical, personality. In one hand, we see him, Ibrahim, as the qudwa. And even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is commanded by Allah, وَاتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ Ibrahim, follow the millat, including the sentiment, the emotion, the religiosity, the strong faith of Ibrahim, the religious commitment of Ibrahim. So all these are part of the word millah. And we are all commanded to follow the millah, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. But at the same time, you see how he was so critical in questioning things, and possibly if we ask this question to a Maulana or Malwi or an Imam or Sheikh in a village, they will say, don't ask this question because looks like you don't believe, possibly. But that's what Ibrahim asked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he said, Rabbi kayfa tuhyi al-mawta, oh my Lord, how are you going to resurrect, how are you going to give life to the death? When someone dies, going back to the turab, to the clay, to become, tin, and how it is possible that you're going to raise and give him life again? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not that he didn't know, but he wants Ibrahim to give answer by himself. So he said, awalam tu'min, don't you believe? He said, bala walakin liyatma'inna qalbi. Yes, Allah, I do believe, but I want peace in mind. I want peace in mind. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was so critical. He asked about how Allah is going to raise the dead. It looks like he doesn't believe, but he believed. But again, it's critical minds. Similarly, possibly when the angel, of course, the angel is different case, but it's just one of the example when he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قَالُوا أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا. They didn't ask, but pretend to know. Okay. Again, this is just some signs in the Holy Quran that Holy Quran is prepared to respond to those critical questions, and I think we must prepare ourselves as well to answer and to respond to those critical questions. But let me just remind, number one, we have to acknowledge that not every single question will be able to be answered and to be responded. Not because Islam doesn't have any response. It is because we acknowledge about our own limitations. Our knowledge is limited. So don't pretend that you know everything else, because sometimes it is so difficult for someone who has a title as an Imam or Sheikh or Maulana or Malwi to acknowledge that they don't know. This is a problematic sometimes. Even when our own people, our own congregation come to us asking questions, we pretend that we know every single answer to those questions. And I just wanted to give you one example how Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, who was considered by Imam Shafi as the star of all ulama. He's the najm, he's the star of all ulama. Imam Malik radiallahu anhu. So Imam Shafi is testified that he's the star. He's the so big alim, he's so knowledgeable. But one day, his own student, his name is Haytham, he testified. And he said, I accompanied my teacher, Imam Malik, once, and the people asked him 40 questions about Islam. And you know what? He answered with this, I don't know. 234 questions. So it means only 6 questions he was able to answer. And he was a big alim, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu. So he acknowledged that he doesn't know or he didn't know. How many Muslims today, and unfortunately, not only scholars, but even those who are reading, things from Google, from one book or certain reference, and then someone is coming asking some fatwa, then we become, instant mufti. We give fatwas around. We didn't study it, we didn't search about it, and then we came to a conclusion and just give fatwa on the basis that we know. It is very dangerous. And so again, when it comes to the da'wah also, and the people come to us, if we don't know and we are not sure about the answer, the best is, I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer, but I would like to refer to my teacher. I would like to encourage you to go to the sheikh. I would like you to read this book. I think the best is direct them to read the Holy Quran, direct them to read certain books that that they can find the answer. But don't force yourself to answer, because I don't think that you know every single thing and you know every single answer. This is number one when we come to the critical question. Number two, of course, we will never be able to answer everything. Once again, it doesn't mean that the answer is not there. But number one, human beings tend to rationalize every single thing. And Islam, alhamdulillah, is a very rational teaching. There is no doubt about that. And every single thing that we believe and do, inshallah, has some reason, rational reason. But it doesn't mean that we can understand every single thing rationally. Our limitation to understand rationally, it doesn't mean make Islam is irrational. We have to understand that. So Islam is rational, but our rationality to understand Islam is so limited, and oftentimes, or sometime at least, that we cannot answer to every rational things that people expect us to answer. When the people ask about why you pray 5 times daily, and they want an answer, a rational answer, not from the Quran. Of course, from the Quran, we can find ayat talking about the 5 times, or the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have religious basis. And for us Muslims who believe in that, we do it on the religious basis, not only because we know rational reasoning behind that. But let's say people don't believe in Islam and ask about why should we pray 5 times daily, for example, just one example. Believe me that at the end of the day, possibly we will not say, I'm sorry, in my understanding, but not necessarily in our understanding that is the answer. So my point here that we have to know that not everything can be answered rationally, and so don't force ourselves once again and pretend that everything else can be answered rationally. Number 3, sometimes we need to refrain from certain questions, and the reason for that is because sometimes when we pretend to know the answer, or let's say forcing ourselves to answer, then there's a trick. That question might be a trick. How many people in the past, when Saudi Arabia doesn't allow, for example, the woman to drive, and they came to us asking the question, and looks like they pretend to ask about Saudi's policy. They say, why Saudi doesn't allow the woman to drive? You know, normal when I was asked about this, I said, I'm not Saudi, I don't know the regulations. I don't know the government, Saudi government's policy, you know, because they ask about Saudi. But we understand they connect Saudi to Islam. And some Americans believe that Saudi is the source of Islam. So they wanted to say, if Saudi is doing anything, that is the representation of Islam, unfortunately. And so when I say, I don't know what's Saudi regulation or Saudi's policy, they say, it means, you know, it's nothing to do with my faith. But when they follow up with questions, is there anywhere in Islam that doesn't allow the woman to drive? Does the Quran prohibit the woman to drive? Does the Hadith prohibit the woman to drive? Is there anywhere a religious basis that prohibit the woman to drive? And then possibly we can answer. And my answer, you know, normally in the past, and we are going to talk some samples, some examples of difficult questions. My answers was sometimes in a form of joking. And I say, you know, I think your question is out of context. So normally they will smile and say, why? And I said, because in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no car. So how it is possible that Prophet Muhammad prohibit the woman to drive? There's no car. So the question is out of context, because there was no car in the time of the Prophet Muhammad. If the prohibition is about riding camel, for example, possibly, maybe I missed the hadith. But to say that Islam prohibits the woman to drive is out of context because there was no car in the time of the Prophet Muhammad. You know, this is just my answer, by the way. My point here that sometimes we just need to reframe ourselves to answer every single thing, and we pretend that we know every single thing. So let me just give you some example about some critical questions and difficult questions to answer from our non-Muslim friends. And certainly for all of us, for those of us who are living here in the state, we experience this question. For example, slavery issue. You know, why the Holy Quran did not come down and directly prohibit slavery? Didn't. We know that there are some, you know, ways of, what they call it, raqaba, you know, freeing slavery is one of the way to remedy any mistake that we do in our ibadat. You know, when you, for example, have any relation with your wife in the month of Ramadan, and the fasting month, then one of the ways that you have to compensate that is by freeing slave. As this is the way to free slave. Or either you just buy slave like Abu Bakr bought Bilal radiallahu anhu. But the question is why the Holy Quran did not come directly and prohibit slavery, because slavery is one of the severe, you know, zulm, oppression to any human being. But why then the Holy Quran did not come and directly prohibit it? It's a difficult question. Of course, you know, certainly we can come and talk about the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, prohibits something. There are something related, including circumstances, that in that time, most of the Meccan's bosses, those who rich, those who are powerful, most of those have slaves, and certainly there will be, you know, such resisting if the Holy Quran came down directly prohibiting slavery, you know, completely. And so there are some ways, and this is what we call fiqh da'wah, you know, not at once, such as alcohol, for example. Alcohol is so dangerous, you know, habit in the community, but why then the Holy Quran came down in stages in prohibiting the alcohol? Because when the Quran came down directly and completely prohibited, it might be there might be you know, a difficulty for some to adjust themselves. So I think this is one of the what we call al-qiyas in Islam towards the prohibition of slavery. There are some others. For example, the destruction of idols in Masjid Al-Haram. That, you know, certainly we can say that Masjid Al-Haram is a masjid where we are worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and but they are still reasoning. They will say, you know, but people also have the right to worship, and this is about the right for others to worship, you know. Again, human beings always have something to say. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا, by the way. So they're going to ask this question. This is just some examples, including, for example, the women's, the inheritance, polygamy, all these things, you know. And then when they ask questions about, in one hand you say inna dina inda Allahi al-Islam, but on the other hand you say lakum dinukum waliyadin, looks that Islam believes in religious freedom, but at the same time, on the other hand, you say that basically there is no other faith acceptable but Islam itself. So, these are all critical questions. Just I wanted to mention to myself and all of us that we must prepare, and we must continue learning and searching and deepening our studying so that we can at least find something to answer. One thing we have to believe that there are answers, but we must challenge ourselves to find those answers, because people are developing, evolving from time to time in their understanding. And if we don't evolve, if we don't develop our understanding and our own, research and knowledge about Islam, we are going to be kept aside, and looks like that we are just so dogmatic in the way we present al-Islam. Regarding jihad, regarding Sharia, why non-Muslims are not allowed to enter into Makkah and Medina, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of questions that basically need to be addressed. And the challenge is how to deepen our studies and enhance our own rational understanding of our deen. And again, we are living in the very rational environment. Looks like everything is about rationality. And Alhamdulillah, Islam is not backward on this particular issue. Islam is not left behind on this particular issue, because we know that Islam is the deen of every time and every place, all times and all places. So we are able to find answers, inshallah. It's just a challenge that we need to deepen our understanding. This is a point. And the next point for tonight, and this is the last one, is about at-tabshiru qabla at-tanzir, the importance of give glad tidings. Give good news, motivating rather than scaring people. I still remember when we are small in villages, the way our parents basically making us praying 5 times daily is scaring us about the hell, that if you don't pray, we are going to be thrown down to the fire. And sometimes they present that examples of fire, just like huge fire. So it's about scaring us. Believe me that methodology doesn't basically develop a healthy inner mentality in the way we are taking our faith seriously. And Rasulullah sallallahu even say that tabashir is even muqaddam, even advance on anything else. It's about giving glad tidings. Bashir, bashir, bashir. Give them good news, motivate them, encourage them. And one of the examples that I give, repeatedly in the past is about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encouraged the sinners, the people who commit sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still encouraged them to come back. There are many examples either in the Quran or Hadith about how the bad people, still Allah motivate them, still Allah encourage them, still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically persuade them to come back to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. Look at the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, address the sinners. Allah does not address those who are muttaqeen, those who are righteous here in this ayah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed those who are out of the way, those who transgress the bounds and the limit, those who are, transgress the hududullah, committed sins. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still says, Ya ibadiya, O my servants. And the word servant, abd, in Arabic language, in the language of the Holy Quran, is one of the most respectful way of calling the servants. serving, calling, the Muslims and the human beings, just such as Rasulullah, and Allah call him in the Quran, وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَى عَبْدِنَا. Allah called Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the Abd. Subhanalladhi asra bi abdi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Muhammad al-Abd because there's a respectful way of calling his servant Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the sinners by calling them Abd, Ibad. Qul ya ibadiyya. All my servants. Maybe I can translate in this way. All my beloved servants. Imagine that. And these people are sinners. الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. Those who transgress, those who oppress themselves. Those who go beyond. لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not despair from the mercy of Allah. Number one, Allah mentioned mercy. He didn't mention from the maghfirat, because mercy is so deep in terms of love and compassion. Mercy is love. This is without any reason, without any. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Rahma is love without any reason. This is just for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned here, لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Do not despair from, not only from the forgiveness, but from the mercy. Because forgiveness is limited to forgiveness. But mercy is beyond forgiveness. Allah will forgive you, and Allah will replace the sin with goodness, with rewards, hasanat. Subhanallah, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a motivation. This is a courage. This is a tabshir, good news, glad tidings to the sinners that Allah mentioned in the Quran. لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. And then Allah specified that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all sins. Forgives all sins. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, many ahadith tells us about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the doors of opportunity to be forgiven. The hadith of Bukhari about the killer of 99. All this story, very famous story, who killed 99 people. And then he went to someone, asked, do you think Allah will forgive me? And the person possibly is so religious, and he said to him, never. You kill 99, it's too much. One person is just like killing all humanity. How about killing 99? So he killed him too. So he killed 100. But he didn't despair. He always hoped, and he wanted to change. So he went to someone else and asked him, do you think Allah will still forgive me? Possibly that person believed in the mercy of Allah, that وَرَحْمَتِ وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, that my mercy covers everything. And so he said, of course, if you are sincere to be forgiven, Allah will forgive you. So he said, Allah will still forgive you. And he was so happy, and he said, what I have to do? And he said to him, go to such a place, to that city, and worship along with those people, and Allah will forgive you. What happened? In the middle of the way, he died. He died. To make the story short, at the end, Allah forgave him, and he entered into Jannah, despite of the killing of 100 people. That is the tabshir. So when we make da'wah, my brothers and sisters, we have to advance this tabshir, rather than scaring people, rather than undermining people, rather than making them pessimistic. Looks like there is no hope anymore. Always give a hope to the people, no matter how worse that person is, how bad that person is. Allah still opened the opportunity for him to come back. And that's our belief. Once again, how many people that, alhamdulillah, they accepted the truth, they accepted the faith at the end of their breath, in the sakratul maut. At the time of sakratul maut, finally they pronounce, they declare, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he became a Muslim. And that is one of the greatest blessings in any human's life, that he died on La ilaha illallah. So once again, tabshir, motivation, courage, good news, glad tidings is the best way to present our faith. And that's what the faith is. That's what Islam is all about. Islam is not that is scaring. Islam is not that is difficult. Islam is not a heavy burden on us. It is something that to celebrate. Something that need to take it seriously but enjoy it. Something that is sweet, supposedly. And so again, that's two things tonight. Number one is prepare to answer to critical questions. And once again, it doesn't mean that we are going to answer everything else, but we must prepare ourselves. And the point here that we need to continue broadening our horizon, broadening our mindset, deepening our research and study, and also the way you communicate. Let me end with this example. The other day, the New York Times journalist came to me personally, and it's a long time ago. I don't know how many years back. But at that time, he came and he said, Imam, as an Imam, do you allow if any gay wanted to enter into your mosque, into your masjid? And I responded that jokingly. I said, I'm not the bodyguard, a security guy at the door asking everybody, are you a gay or straight? That is my answer. Why did I answer in that way? Because if I said no, of course, if I said directly, then there are some Muslim misunderstanding. So I answer in that way. But he followed up another question. How about he is open? You don't have to ask him, but he said, I am a gay and I want to pray in the masjid. I said to him, listen, every single human being has the right to worship his or her Lord. And everybody is allowed to worship. In my mind at the time, that hopefully, by worshiping God the Almighty, that God will guide for them. Yes, we disagree in that choice. But it doesn't mean that we have to take away his right to worship his Lord. At the end of the day, lakum a'malukum wa lana a'maluna. It's about our own individual responsibility. But the problem, he followed up again with another question. How about if he or she asks you to marry? Couple, man and man, come and say, I wanted to marry. How should we answer that? So I said to him, listen, I have studied the Quran as I studied the Bible, as I studied the Torah, the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I understood that the marriage in any religious institutions is about between Adam and Eve. That's what we know in the history, not between Adam and Moses. This is a simple way of answering, possibly considered a joke, but it's a serious. In other words, that we don't. That is sometimes the way should we respond and communicate. Why we don't just give a black and white response? Because sometimes a question is tricky. People ask you one question, but basically what they want is something else. It's about human rights. It's about religious freedom. It's about human choice. It is about free to choose, and so on and so forth. And if you just directly give an answer no, it means Islam has no respect to people's choice and human rights. It's dangerous. So we have to know what is basically the reasoning behind that particular question. That is what we call preparing ourselves to answer to difficult questions. And of course, the last one tonight is tabshir. You have to be always, advancing good news, glad tidings, courage, motivation, rather than scaring the people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen our faith. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.